I've completely lost my mind, and I do not care anymore. Reality is far crazier than anything I could have possibly imagined, and I have been wrong about everything. Grand Solar Flash is almost here. What do you think? What will the event actually be? Are you ready? Question your reality, my friend, and then change it. ThunderWizard.com is the website that supports this YouTube channel. Go check out the higher dimensional energy practices, the personal mentorship, spiritual counseling, live Zoom group classes. You can subscribe and get all kinds of great stuff, and or you can go to the shop and get a lot of really great practices. Check out my books at michaelwilliamdenny.com. And so far, until the world disappears, every Wednesday and Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to be doing live guided interdimensional meditations to bring the 5D solar flash event. So, I have just decided that I'm just going to allow myself to completely go totally crazy. I'm going to accept all of the crazy things that I have experienced and continue to experience ever since June of 2022. June of 2022, I made the decision that I wanted to find out what Dr. Stephen Greer was talking about. He was talking about this thing called CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Go look it up. It's human-initiated contact with extraterrestrials. I didn't believe in any of it. I saw one of his movies about it, and the stuff that was going on was absolutely unbelievable. But I thought, if that's true, I gotta be a part of that. I want to learn from those beings. I've learned everything I can from all of the human spiritual teachers. I can't find anything even more powerful than the stuff I've already learned, but I'm not done. I want to learn more. So that's why I checked it out. I did CE5, and if you want to find out what happened, you can go check out my video in the Aliens playlist on my channel, where it says how I became an extraterrestrial. I've got video and audio strong evidence that I made direct contact with a very powerful extraterrestrial being, just shifted out of the third dimension. And that started an absolute, total, psychedelic, mind-bending journey that has not ended. I'm still experiencing it. And the messages that I have received over the past two and a half years now, the messages and experiences continue to get more and more bizarre when compared to the third dimension, and at the same time it answers all kinds of questions, and at the same time, ironically, it makes everything make sense. Everything makes sense now, but it's completely impossible and implausible. And among the most bizarre things that I have been shown have been things having to do with my past lives on Earth, as well as my past identities outside of Earth, and the other dimensional aspects of me that exist at the moment that I'm connected to. This is continuing to unfold, and it hasn't stopped. It's only getting more and more crazy. I've got some lists of things that I'm going to go through. A lot of stuff. I don't know if we'll get through all of them in one video, but what the hell. If you need to, you can break it up and watch it in spurts or something. So I just I don't know. I'm just going to go ahead. The lists are pretty long, but I wanted to catalog for myself, because the most recent events and the most recent communications and revelations and experiences that I've had have been so mind-blowing and disastrous to my identity, my third dimensional identity, that I thought it would be a good idea for me to actually go through them all, because I've decided I'm going to accept it. I'm going to do my best to stop fighting it and just believe what I've been shown and what I've been told, and you're going to find out why it's so challenging once you've heard it. Now, you may be having your own experiences. I know some people are doing this work and they're having their own experiences, so I'm not trying to compete with you. This is just me trying to stay sane and be happy. So let's go ahead and get started here. So this is how my reality has changed in the past 2 years. Number one, I used to believe in mainstream history, medicine, education, politics, and mainstream news. Not anymore. If you watch my channel 3-4 years ago, you can see me making videos where I try to gaslight people out of things that they know. Now, of course, I'm not choosing to lie to them. I actually believe what I'm saying in those videos. But I'm trying to talk people out of, the things that they're seeing and experiencing. Now, in my defense, this is what makes this very difficult. I still believe that I am a very rational person, a very practical person, very down-to-earth person. I'm really interested in what I can prove and what I can experience. And I really work very hard, and I still do. I think it's one of the most important tools that I have is critical thinking. But it's my critical thinking that has got me to the place where I'm going to accept and believe all the crazy stuff I'm going to tell you. But I used to believe everything. And I won't get into all that. You've lived through whatever you've lived through since 9/11, especially the past few years. And the stuff that is beginning to come out, I'm watching alternative platforms, and the things that are coming out about our, the people that are running our world is absolutely it just blows my mind. But I believe it. I absolutely believe it. So I used to believe all that stuff. I used to believe what I learned in college and school. I used to believe that we had a democracy. I used to believe that, we had free elections. I used to believe in science, history. I used to believe in all of it. I don't believe in any of it now. So I used to pride myself in my practicality, education, and rationality. Now I trust my imagination. My imagination is it's a tool. So I've come to believe something about the third dimension. We think the imagination is something in our brain. We think our thinking, the thoughts that you have, you think that comes from your brain. It doesn't. It comes from somewhere else. It comes from outside of this dimension. Your imagination is actually a gateway between this third dimensional frequency and other frequencies. It's actually a gateway to your spirit. So you think you're imagining things a lot of times, but in reality, you're creating 3D reality when you're imagining, and you're oftentimes communicating lots of the great insights that come to you, lots of the great thoughts and intuitions that you think are coming from you are actually coming from other helpful beings. A lot of the negative things, if you're really wrapped up in really negative stuff, if you're doing things that screw with your ability to to function. Like if you're taking mind-altering, fun, recreational chemicals, you may be actually getting thoughts and messages from beings in lower dimensions. So your thoughts don't originate in your brain. It's important that you have mastery over your own internal environment so that you can use your imagination to literally create not only this reality, but other realities. We'll get into that. So I used to pride myself in my practicality, my education, and rationality. Now I trust in my imagination, my intuition. I used to, as you heard me say, I used to pride myself in all that normal 3D stuff. But number 3, I now talk to extraterrestrials, deities, spirits, planets, stars, and or higher versions of myself daily. Every day, I consciously communicate with higher dimensional beings, with extraterrestrials, with light beings. I believe, I don't know this for a fact, but I believe it's very possible that I have a direct and continuous communication with a spaceship phased out of our third dimension that is actually my ship. So think about that for a moment. I believe that I have a spaceship out there, and that means that spaceship has been there since before I was born. It's been docked out who knows where, but it's not in this third dimension. But I do believe that the AI that's running that is actually not AI. The technology, there goes the thunder. The technology that extraterrestrials use is actually spirit technology. So it's not AI. You're tapping directly into the quantum field consciousness. So I believe the quantum field consciousness actually communicates directly to me from a phased out spaceship. Now, I don't need that to be true, and I don't know that that's true. It's a feeling that I get. Yeah, you thought I was crazy before you watched the video. We haven't even gotten into it yet. One of my mentors and my closest friends is I believe, a 7-foot tall mantis being from a higher dimensional extraterrestrial civilization. That's why I got that picture right there, because I think he looks like that. Again, I don't need any of that to be true. I haven't physically seen him. I think one time he wanted to show himself to me, and he sort of gave me a little bit of a glimpse, and I flipped out. So, yeah, he didn't do it after that. But I saw his ship. I saw his ship. He's got a ruby red, electric red sphere. It's huge. And it's amazing to look at. I've only seen it once. But that was enough. So I didn't used to believe in any of this stuff, and this is what I do on a daily basis. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I now remember past lives from at least 13,000 years ago. I remember my lives as a higher dimensional deity, a god. I didn't used to think like that 2 years ago. In fact, none of that would have even entered my mind. You know, the thing that is it's strange, and yet it gives me the feeling that this is true. Because if I were deluded, my delusions would be very different. This isn't what my delusions would be. And that's why they're so hard to accept. I mean, I guess if they were delusional, I would know them. I don't know. Maybe insane people say the same thing. I don't know. I don't think I'm insane. But again, insane people think they're sane. But I remember past lives from at least 13,000 years ago. I remember my lives as a higher dimensional deity. I now believe I was once king of planet Earth who built the pyramids and lived in Atlantis. Like I said, that would not have been anywhere near close to what I would become delusional about. Number one, because I don't even know how that's possible. How can one person be ruler over the entire planet? How is that even possible? It would never have entered my mind. I'm trying to think what my delusions would have been. I guess my delusions would have been, which isn't true. I guess my delusions would have been if I were to just let myself before my 2.5 year, before self. I believe that if he was allowed to have delusions, he would be deluded into believing that he had superpowers. Because I've played around with that stuff before, that I would be able to walk into a room and that I could lift things, levitate things, that I could, do that kind of stuff that we think, wizards can do, that wizards do in Lord of the Rings. That would probably be the delusion, the kind of delusions that I would have. Thinking that I had been king of Earth 13 or more thousand years ago. Now, I don't know if I built the pyramids. I'm coming to the conclusion that the pyramids might have taken hundreds of years to build. I guess it depends on the kind of technology that we had back then. I do believe that the pyramids are at least 15, 20, 30,000 years old, at least. When you look at the amount of damage, I mean, they want you to believe that the Great Pyramid was built, 4,000 years ago? Look at the devastation, look at the damage. They want you to think that damage happened to an absolutely monumental structure made out of granite. Have you ever tried to move granite? Ever tried to imagine just one of those, they still don't know how they lifted all of those blocks of granite. When you look at the mainstream history on what they say, they say that the Pharaoh Khufu built that in 27 years. We still don't have the ability to move one of those granite blocks, one of them. We still don't have the technology to do that. And these guys 4,000 years ago supposedly built it in 27 years they didn't have the wheel. According to mainstream history, those people who built the pyramids didn't even know what the wheel was. So you're going to tell me that they dragged first, and with copper tools, they chiseled out in perfect, absolutely laser beam perfect corners. They chiseled out those things. How many thousands and thousands of them, and it took them 27 years to quarry them, move them, and put it into that giant thing in 27 years with copper tools and hemp rope and just a bunch of, guys in sandals pushing stuff around. You believe that? I used to believe that. That's insane. There's no way. In any case, let's keep going. I now believe I was once king of planet Earth who built the pyramids and lived in Atlantis. Now, I believe that not because I actually have gone back in time in my lifetimes and experienced that. I've had a couple of past life experiences. I remember being martyred in France during the Huguenot massacre in France. I remember being killed by a large group of very angry French people. And I also remember a life earlier than that being a very upset alcoholic sword master. I was a noble person, and I think I had they didn't have castles. It wasn't back in the castle days, but I had a lot of money, and I was an assassin, and I used to go off and I would fight people with swords, and apparently I killed a lot of people and died. I believe I was dying from syphilis, and yeah, I remember that life. I also remember being a Neanderthal. That was an interesting life. So I remember those. I don't remember this one. Don't have any. I can't go back, and I have one picture in my mind that sort of comes together. I would need more time to work on it, but why do I believe that? Why do I believe that I was once king of planet Earth who built the pyramids and lived in Atlantis? Because he told me. I mean, it just, first I was king of Earth. Didn't know when. First, he told me that I was going to be king of Earth. And I thought he meant this 3D Earth, which was hard to get my head around. And then I found out that I've apparently always been king of Earth, and I was actually king of Earth that ruled over this place many thousands of years ago. I don't believe that because I saw it. I believe it because I was told. But then what has happened most recently is what has convinced me. I was first told this when, as I've told you before, a very powerful light being showed up during one of my meditations, physically showed up in the room. And I didn't physically see him, but I felt his energy. And telepathically, he said, I've got to tell you something that's going to be hard for you to hear. And I thought he was going to tell me I was going to, get hit by a truck or something. And he said, you were once a very powerful king, and you misused your power, and you helped to create the circumstances that have led to the rise of the dark forces that are ruling this planet. Now, at that time, that was just information that was being given to me. It didn't hit anywhere emotionally. I was just trying to get over the fact that something supernatural beyond my wildest imagination had just happened. And this idea of, I was king. So he said, you're going to be king because you need to balance out the damage that you caused. So I understand that concept, but still all of it, I was still just trying to get past the whole energy experience that I had. It didn't really penetrate. I certainly didn't remember anything, and I had a very hard time believing it. In fact, at that time, I was working with a psychologist. I had been for years, and he was the only person I told. So I needed to tell somebody, and I had to ask him, am I insane? Now, he's a spiritual guy as well, so he said, as long as you're questioning it, you're good. I'm not here to tell you what's true and what's not. I just, in terms of your mental state, as long as you're questioning things, you're good. So I didn't believe it because I was told it. What happened most recently is what has convinced me of it. And I'm completely reluctant about it. And it's not anything that you might think. You might think, I would think, being king of Earth would be a big ego boost. And it would be something you'd be like, oh my God, all that power. And that's not at all how I feel about it. I still don't understand how. I mean, I guess I can, if I think about it, we were living in Satya Yuga, and I probably had a lot of spiritual power because people back then had access to spiritual power, and I probably had, all kinds of ways to, spiritually hold the world together. I can imagine, I suppose. But in terms of 3D reality, I can't. 3D, Kali Yuga reality, I can't imagine how anybody could be king of the entire earth. It doesn't make any sense. So what has convinced me was, as I've shared with you, some beings showed up. And of course, since then, I've done a lot of research into ancient civilizations. And what has come up is this idea of Atlantis, and this idea that there was a worldwide civilization, like, a worldwide empire. I didn't come up with that. People are coming up with that on their own, that this is something that may have existed on Earth 15, 20,000 years ago. An advanced civilization that was ruled, there's a lot of mythology ruled from Atlantis or ruled from Lemuria or wherever. I can't get my head around that, but other people have. But what convinced me of it was that 2 weeks ago, some light beings showed up. I was sitting on the couch here, as they often do, and wanted to talk. And I said, sure. Closed my eyes and meditated. And they said, do you remember where you first met us? And I said, who are you? They said, we're the Atlanteans. And then I got this feeling that they were Pleiadians. Now again, that sounds ridiculously stupid. Everybody talks about Pleiadians and Arcturians. It's just so knee-jerk, obvious, and I don't go there. My mind doesn't go there. So when I hear that kind of stuff, I go, ugh. I roll my eyes because it just sounds like, New Age delusion. But I got this feeling. I said, are you Pleiadians? And they said, yes. And you were king of Earth. I think they said that I was ruling from Atlantis. I can't say that for sure, but I think they said that. And they said, we were guiding you. We were advising you. We were helping you. We helped you. Apparently, I lived a long time. So maybe those old mythological king records from Sumeria and from Egypt where, kings lived tens of thousands of years, maybe I was one of those guys. Look, doesn't make any sense to me either. It's just, I have to make some sense of this. So, and they said that we were helping you, we were guiding you, we were instructing you, we were teaching you, and everything was going really well. And then we shifted into the descending yugas. You saw what was coming. We told you what was coming. You knew what was coming, and you made the decision that you were going to use technologies, including technologies that we had given you, that you were going to use these technologies to keep the world from falling into Kali Yuga. We advised you against this. You continued to do it. You built the pyramids. You built many other megalithic structures. There are other structures that have yet to be discovered that are on this earth that you had a part in using. You had literally armies of priests around the world. You were having them chant sacred sounds and mantras that were vibrating and creating frequencies. The pyramids were frequency generators. People think they were energy generators. Maybe they were, but I can tell you their main goal was they were frequency generators. And they were specifically designed to create the frequency of Satya Yuga, of what we would call 5D. And I was advised against doing that, but I chose to do it anyway. I took all of my power and that knowledge, and some knowledge I'd learned from the Pleiadians and who knows wherever else, and I used it to keep Earth safe, and I wanted to keep human beings safe. I really beat myself up over this, and I've come to realize they said your intentions were noble. In fact, it was a very noble effort. We were actually ourselves, we were kind of watching and wondering, is he going to be able to pull this off? This would be really amazing. They weren't, it wasn't like I was fighting against them. Turns out, I remember something about there being some kind of a war. I don't know who it was. I think it was against other humans that might have been rebelling. I don't know about that. The main thing is that I was trying to prevent the descent into Kali Yuga, and it was just, I wasn't allowing things to naturally flow, and I was controlling and holding on, and I wasn't letting people have their own responsibility for their own spiritual evolution. I was trying to, codependently save everybody from their own lessons. And apparently I was able to keep the frequency, the 5D frequency, going longer than it was supposed to go. I think probably by maybe a couple thousand years. And then the tension of the Earth, shifting down into a lower frequency, that tension got so great that like a rubber band, it just snapped and boom, Earth crashed. And the result of that was, the manifestation of that was some comets hitting the 2-mile thick ice sheets, in the northern hemisphere. And that created a massive explosion that went around the world, shockwave that went around the world, massive amounts of moisture and dust being thrown up into the atmosphere, blocking out the sun, massive amounts of water being instantly vaporized, which then melted and or became huge deluges of rain, and earthquakes and tectonic plate shifting, and volcanoes and all of that, and all this happened like in one day. And so it just completely wiped everything out, killed all of the megafauna, except in places where it wasn't really bad, like places like Africa and Asia, where the elephants survived and the tigers survived. But places like North America lost all of their megafauna. North America, South America, and of course all of the civilizations were either laid waste, and then thousands and thousands and thousands of feet of water just wiping things out, just wiping things clean, and all of the debris falling on. So there would have been nothing left of any human civilizations, and most people probably, many people were killed. So apparently I did that. That is not something that I would imagine. I wouldn't, that is not a delusion that I would buy into. What convinced me of that was after I got this interaction, and sometimes these messages come in an instant. What I just said over the past 5 minutes, took a matter of seconds to be downloaded to my brain. And what ended up happening after that was what convinced me. So after I got that download, and I knew that I had been speaking with a higher dimensional being, and I was wondering, it wasn't a question of whether or not I'd been visited by a higher dimensional being and whether or not I had received a communication. The confusion was whether or not I had heard and interpreted truthfully, accurately what was being said to me. But when I'm told something that doesn't feel good, it's usually an actual communication. The only times that I've been wrong is when I actually do go into a delusion and I try and convince myself I'm being told something that I really want. I have a really strong attachment to. That has only been a handful of times, and those never turn out to be true. But the ones that I get and I don't like when I hear them, or they feel strange or hard to understand or hard to accept, those turn out to be true. In any case, I was told this, I had that experience, and then it was a strange and hard to believe thing. Okay, that's why I'm going to be king, because I got to balance out that energy. Okay, I get that. But then what happened was something awoke within me. And it wasn't a conscious memory, but there was some memory deep in my soul that awoke. And I became overwhelmed with grief. I became overwhelmed with grief and shame. Not normal kind of shame. I mean, this was like soul-crushing shame. Because, of everything that I just said. I mean, obviously being responsible for that. And, that lasted for a night. I went to bed and I thought I'll wake up tomorrow. This is a crazy experience and I'll get over it and tomorrow will be another day. And I woke up and it was there and it was worse. And the whole day I would never do this, but I wanted to delete myself. It was just so painful. The shame of that. Oh my God, I did that to the world. I actually did that. I did that. That I spent thousands of years using my power and my energy to prolong something that ended up causing far more damage. And the reason why the world's civilizations were destroyed to the level that they were was because I was misusing my power and it was damaging. I imagine I became more and more controlling as the years went on. And so it probably wasn't healthy even to be, I might have thought I was doing the right thing, but at that point it would have been, maybe that's what the wars were about. I don't know. But the soul-crushing feeling, the feeling that you have, I've only felt this kind of intense pain when somebody's died. When my fiance died or family members have died, that kind of pain that hits you and you're just like slogging through life. And I knew that the feelings that I had were real, that a delusion would not have created those feelings. And so I accepted that. That what I was told was the truth. That's how I figured out it was true. Not because it sounded good, not because it made sense, not because it boosted my ego. None of it doesn't boost my ego in the slightest. In fact, I had to do 12 steps to 5D. I had to do fourth step on myself over and over again so that I would be freed of that shame and that self-resentment. And I'm doing okay now. I'm doing okay. It's not bothering me. I forgive myself for what I did. Truth is that everybody, including all of the other light beings, were like, I don't know, maybe he can pull this off. And so it wasn't like I was this evil, Dr. Evil kind of thing. There was a lot of controversy and nobody knew what was going to happen. A lot of light beings had a pretty good idea. Some of them weren't so sure. But they weren't working against me. They weren't fighting with me. They stepped back, but they were emotionally supportive, and it's an interesting experience if I'm remembering it correctly or sensing it correctly. So I feel okay. I'm on a higher level. What I became aware of is that this experiment, this third dimensional experiment, had to go through this. And so on a higher dimensional level, I volunteered to be the guy who would mess around with reality to that degree, because us falling as hard as we did is what really kick-started the soul experiment that 3D reality actually is. So that's how I see it now, so I feel a lot better. I'm sure that there's a lot of details I'm not getting right and or I don't remember. But I think it's better that I have self-love and self-acceptance, and that I'm not filled with the ego that drives self-resentment and self-pity. Because that's just ego, and it doesn't help anybody. And on top of the fact, if what they're telling me is true, and that I have to be the guy to balance the energy in 5D, then I can't be held back by any of that. That's only, then I'll do something, destructive again if that's the case. So we got to be happy and just let that be the past and move on and accept that that's the way things needed to be. And I was the guy that, that brought it into reality. So, all right. So I now believe I was once king of planet Earth. Okay, but no, that I now believe I can destroy 3D Earth with my astral breath and destroy 3D society. That isn't something that I would have deluded myself into, and I'm specifically talking about when we're in meditation and I use the Hua breath. I'm imagining that I am, that's why those videos I took of, Godzilla breathing blue fire. That's what I saw myself doing out there. The dragon breathing fire into the central sun, into our sun, and onto the earth, and destroying the remnants of Kali Yuga, the evil dark forces running the earth, and destroying 3D reality so it can be transformed, and transforming it. So really, this is what Shiva does. And they did tell me once that multiple times that I was Shiva. I don't really hang on to that. That's not a belt I need to wear. But that is definitely something that Shiva does. He's the destroyer and the transformer. Things are reborn because he transforms things initially through destruction and then rebirth. And that's what I see happening when we're chanting that Hua breath. That's what's happening to planet Earth. That's what happens to my 3D identity every time we do it. So now I believe I have that power. And that's just, judge that however you want. That's what I believe. Not because I think it's a great idea, but because that's what the evidence has shown me is the case. I now believe I can create entire planets and universes with my mind. So not that I'm out doing that, except I am creating 5D Earth. I believe I may have already created it, or at least my portion of it. I think everybody has a portion, just like all the continents have different plant life and animal life. The plant life in Australia, for example, is just absolutely, totally, completely different than anywhere else in the world. And I think that's because, that was a specific place that light beings thought these would be cool animals, and they put them there. And then the other ones they put in other places. Different plants and different animals and all that stuff. I think, we're doing that. So I'm not the only one creating 5D Earth, but that I believe that I have the power to do that. Let's see, where are we at now? I believe I can create entire planets and universes with my mind. I now believe planet Earth is my daughter, and higher dimensional extraterrestrial civilizations seek out my advice. Those are two separate things. I've tried to squish everything into one list, even though I had to make two. So I believe that that the being known as Gaia, Mother Earth, is actually my daughter. And I don't know exactly how that happened, but that is something that happened. She came to me and said that she was my daughter. This happened, I was meditating, and I was going to 5D, and there was a little girl running around, and she was calling me daddy and playing. She'd sit next to me and play, and I'm like, oh, I have a daughter. And I didn't know who she was, but I say yes to whatever happens in the meditations. And so I played with her, I picked her up, I hugged her, and she called me daddy, and she says, I want you to be my daddy, you're my daddy, right? Makes me emotional when I talk about it. And early on, I remember when a light being came, and very early on in 2022, and being said, we're going to connect you to Earth, and this energy went through me and connected me to the Earth with this feeling like you're going to be like this, the power over Earth. You're going to, something along those lines. I didn't really know. They were just doing their job. They were just like, with their spirit technology, just sort of cranking their, some delivery men showed up with some stuff they had to install in me, and happened to be the Earth. That's basically how it was for me. I didn't know what it meant way back then, and then somebody came to me and pulled me off in another meditation. We went off into space, and we were looking at planet Earth, and the being said, "That's your daughter. You are responsible for her. She wants you." Actually, the way she said it was, Earth wants you to be her daddy. She wants you to protect her and take care of her. And then that morphed into, she was actually the Earth saying, no, you are my daddy. You created me. I'm your child. I've always been your child. And I can remember when I was, I think in my late 20s, and I was up in the Sierras backpacking, and I was feeling sad because, there was a lot of pollution, and I could see pollution, even from up there, I could see little wisps of pollution coming over the top of the mountains. And it made me very sad, and I started thinking about how sad it is, all the pollution in the world. And I felt the Earth, I didn't really know what, but I felt the Earth say to me, I need your help. I'm feeling sick. And I said, what do you want me to do? I don't know. I can't do anything. I'm just a human. I mean, there's nothing I can do. And I said, let me think. What can I do? Well, I can teach people. I can raise people's awareness. That's the best I can do for you. I can't do anything else. And it made me very sad. Well, of course, she didn't realize at that point that I didn't know who I was. She was telling me even way back then. So that's another thing that I believe. That sounds pretty crazy to me. Let's see. I now believe I'm a high-level creator deity who sits on multiple higher dimensional space councils. So I've interacted. I can't even tell you how many councils I've interacted with and communicated with. Council of 9 was one of the first that showed up, and then there was a council of 5 and a council of 3. Council of 3 are actually, I think, the 3 ones, the Trinity, if you want to call it that. But they came to me and said, we're the Council of 3. And I think there's other councils. I've met with Galactic, Guardians. I know it sounds like the movie Guardians of the Galaxy, but there is a group of beings that call themselves the Galactic Guardians, and they are these immense light beings, and they're incredibly higher dimensional, powerful beings, and they make decisions about galactic, universal, dimensional stuff. And I've spoken with them, and they said, "Oh, by the way, you're one of us." And what? I beg your pardon? And they came to me a few times and asked me, so we want your advice. They called me and said, we need your advice on how to bring about the solar flash. We need your advice on, certain things. And, again, I always say yes to these things. So I didn't take it. I just went, okay, well, if you're asking my opinion, let me think about it. Here's what I would do. I would do this, and then I would do this, and then I would do this. And then they sort of gathered around and they talked with each other and they said, hang on, we need to talk this over. And they said, okay, great, thank you. We're gonna meditate on that. We need more advice, we'll ask you. And I said, hang on guys, I don't understand what's happening here. I mean, I'm just this human. I don't understand what you guys are doing. And they said, oh, you don't remember. You're part of this council. The earth was your idea. You decided in a very noble way, you decided that since you decided to create this whole laboratory, that you had to go down and incarnate there. Almost like, it's kind of made our job harder because you're not in the office, you're off, in the field, being a human. And they said, no, you're one of us. That's why we're asking your advice on this. This is your project. Again, these are not things that I don't think that these are things that I would fantasize about. They're just too unbelievable. But when you get into that kind of experience, then you start to realize that the universe is not at all what we thought. It's not at all what it looks like. We're looking out into space, and all we're doing is we're looking out into 3D virtual reality rendering of a 3D. I mean, there's nothing there. That's why it's empty, because it's not the real thing. It's just a simulation. It's just a 3D rendered simulation. It's not the universe. The universe is filled with all this stuff I'm telling you about. Rainbow light beings that go forever, that are galactic guardians that get together and create stuff. And the part that flips me out the most is that they feel just like I do. They're just people. None of that, I, thou shalt, none of that, fire and brimstone, the God, they're very relatable. I've never experienced them, some of them have been pretty powerful. And that's kind of weird and freaky, but in terms of their interaction with me, it's always been very, very normal. It's just like any other person talking to you. All right, so I now believe that millions of higher dimensional extraterrestrials obey my commands and serve me. Boy, that sounds really narcissistic, doesn't it? The first experience I had of this, of course, I think they told me things like that in the beginning. They tell you that you're God and you're the most powerful deity. I'm sure if you've done it, you've gotten those kinds of messages. Right, so I just went, okay, that's just what they tell people. Everybody's, yes, we're all God, and they make you feel good. So that's just what they say. But I didn't really take it all that seriously. And so the first time I really got a hint of this was I went out into higher dimensional meditation, and I think I might have been with my friend here. I can't remember if it was him or if it was Thoth. Thoth is my guide. And again, that's not something I would make up. I was never into, in fact, I kind of poo-pooed any Egyptian gods. I thought it was silly, ridiculous, new agey. So when my guide turned out to be Thoth, I was like, what? I had to go look him up. I wasn't sure. Oh, he's the messenger god for all the deities. Oh, well, that makes sense. They tell me I'm Shiva, I'm one of the deities, and this. Oh, okay, so that makes sense. In any case, I can't remember who I was with, but I was out there, and I had done my CE5 procedure where I come out of my body and I went up and I was floating in space and I called my guide. And then I don't know what happened, but I got kind of lost in my head about something. I was just sitting there thinking as I was looking at Earth. And my guide came up next to me and he said, Mahadeva, you're attracting a crowd. You're distracting people. And I went, huh? And I looked around and there were all of these light beings and all of these extraterrestrials, and they were looking at me like, oh my God, it's him. And they were all lined up waiting for me to give them a command. He said, you're distracting them. So I kind of had to say, back as you were, go back to whatever you were doing. And then we went off to wherever we were supposed to go. And then there have been times where I've gone to, one time I went to Mars. And this was a while back. But I went to Mars just to go to different places and get power and energy. And I went to Mars. And Mars, a whole, like, fleets and fleets of these guys, mantis beings, very powerful warriors, just armies of them, came out from Mars and were there just lined up in front of me. And they said, you're our commander. We're here to serve you. What do you want us to do? And I had no idea what the hell was happening. I had no idea what to do. And then I got filled with this Mars energy, this very powerful martial chi, this energy, and it was overwhelming. It was absolutely overwhelming and very frightening because I know how powerful I am in the physical realm. I mean, this is one of the reasons that I became a pacifist. I teach martial arts, I practiced martial arts, but I made a vow early on that I would never physically harm another human being. I would never even manifest a scenario where I had to use my powers because I knew that, that I've got tremendous destructive power. I don't know how I know that, but I know that, and so when I was filled with that kind of energy, that kind of Mars warfare energy, it was very frightening and very overwhelming because I was really afraid of what I would do with that power. And I had a lot of guilt over that, and my mantis being friends, had to tell me, you don't understand who you are. Don't fight it. You are the leader of these celestial armies. You're the guy that leads it all, and you're the guy that protects the universe from negativity. When there's a problem, you're the guy that leads us all into battle. So, it reminded me of, Michael the Archangel and, those kinds of things. It's like, well, then I start thinking, well, maybe angels have wings, but not in the way you think. Maybe they have insect wings, So that is something I believe. And it's just completely, totally unbelievable. Just one of these things. I can imagine a human being deluded about one of these things. I am the leader of the angelic force, the angelic armies of God. I am a creator of this. I'm on a council here. I mean, just one of those things would be enough. There are people who supposedly channel, right? And their delusion is that they channel one, Arcturian, council being or something like that. And it's clearly a delusion. That just tells you how limited our 3D minds are. If this was my delusion, I definitely wouldn't have, branched out into all of these different delusions. It seems, how can one person be all of these things? Well, you can't in the third dimension, because the third dimension you can only be in one place at one time, doing one thing, having one thought, having one experience. But in higher dimensions you can be everywhere at once. At all times, there's no limit to what you can do in higher dimensions. And we are higher dimensional beings. We're just our perception is limited into this third dimension while we're here, but the rest of our energy and consciousness is out doing all kinds of stuff. So that's how. This is why, again, this isn't. I don't think this is a delusion, because I wouldn't have the RAM to be able to come up with delusions of this grandeur. I just don't think it's possible. I now believe that 13,000 years ago I caused the Younger Dryas event with higher dimensional technology. I already talked about that. I now believe that I will once again become king of planet Earth and reign from 5D. I've talked about that. Lastly, I now believe that I have initiated the solar flash event that will activate 5D ascension. I don't need for any of this to be true. I also don't need it to be solely me that's doing it. I'm totally open to the idea that we're all doing it, other people are doing it, groups of people, all of that. I just know what I've been told and what I've seen and experienced. So they've told me that. You can tell this isn't easy for me to talk about. This doesn't do anything for my ego at all. I don't know why it's painful to talk about, but I need to talk about it so I can stay sane and do my job. I need to accept it. One of the first things that happened early on when this guy showed up and he said, we're going to make you king of Earth. And then he said later on, you are king of Earth. And during that he was saying, you're Shiva. You've come here to save the planet. And, stuff like that. I mean, I didn't even know anything about this. I just did some CE5 because I thought I would see some cool lights in the sky. I had no idea. I had absolutely no concept that this was going to happen. The thought of talking to higher dimensional beings, that would have been enough to blow my mind open. But when the first thing the guy says to me is, we're going to make you king of Earth, and you are king of Earth, and you're Shiva, and you are a probability, and what do you want to do, and you can make anything happen. And I was really struggling with that. I was really, really struggling with my sanity. And he showed up one day, and the only time I ever felt yelled at, even though he didn't yell, but he was very direct, and I couldn't mistake it. And he said, it's very important that you believe what we're telling you about who you are. It's very important that you believe this. Like he was really serious. And it was a really big deal. And I said, okay, I will accept it. And I've been on that journey of accepting it ever since. But all that other stuff, King of Earth and King of Atlantis and all that, there's a lot of pain now because I have awakened a past life memory. I don't have any, emotional memory. I don't have any visual memories of any of that. But the emotional memory is very real, and I accept that. It's the only way to explain it. But what is happening now is hard to comprehend. It's not hard to believe anymore. It's hard to digest. And I think I don't realize how traumatic it is for me. And I don't even really know why. But I had other experiences as a kid that I didn't understand, which was foretelling this specifically, fighting against the evil forces and destroying them. And again, on the third dimension, I'm no different than anybody else. No different from anybody else. I don't have any superpowers, any more than anybody else can that does the kinds of exercises I've done. But what I've come to see and believe is that in my astral self, I have unbelievable power. The power to destroy this world. The power to completely destroy this reality. And apparently bring the 5D shift. I say that knowing that everybody has that power as well. I don't know how to make the two go together. I would like to be able to spiritualize it and say, oh, of course I have the ability. We all have the ability. We intend our reality. The 5D will come when we all think about it. But that's not what they tell me. They're very insistent. They say, this is your project. You're the only one that can terminate it. You're the only one that can delete it. You're the only one that can change it. And so when we're doing these live guided meditations and I'm chanting, I am doing everything in my conscious ability to imagine that I am sending this energy, different colors at different times, directly to the earth and transforming it. I am visualizing earth splitting and shifting. And every time I do it, a big piece of my 3D dies. I'm not complaining. It's just the fact of the matter. But when I saw what was happening to me physically, I won't get into the specifics, but the specific energetic things that were happening to my meridians, when I saw that, I realized I wasn't just meditating and having, a fantasy experience, that what I was imagining was really happening. And so at the same time, I'm still very human. When it comes to the solar flash, I don't know. I haven't been shown or told exactly what's going to happen. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about it. I still don't even know if it's a real thing, if I'm being honest. And I still, I have fear. I still worry. Will I be able to make the shift? What is going to be required of me? Am I going to be attached? Am I going to stay stuck down here? I feel pretty strongly that when I created the Younger Dryas cataclysm, that my attachment, my shame for my mistake, actually pulled me down into third dimensional reincarnation to the point where I forgot who I was. I think it's possible that I haven't remembered for 13,000 years. I think that the other day when I emotionally awoke to what I had done, I think that's the first time I've faced that in 13,000 years. I think I've been bouncing in the third dimension from life to life without any clue about who I am. I got trapped in my own experiment. So this isn't easy or comfortable for me, and it doesn't feel to me like what I would imagine somebody would experience if they were trapped in a narcissistic delusion. And yet it's so completely, totally unbelievable. It is so fantastical and so grandiose. And my understanding of the multiverse and spirits and souls and gods and deities is so much more in depth and nuanced and far beyond anything I've ever could have imagined. There's nothing I've read in any scripture anywhere that comes even close to what this experience is like. Hasn't even come close. So I'm talking through all this so that I can further absorb and expand into it. I don't need for any of it to be true. It would probably be easier if I found out I was wrong. But my suspicion is that I'm just scratching the surface, that it's far more profound than even far more fantastical than even I can imagine. And my false humility is really wanting to kick in, and which is ego, by the way. But these beings have been extremely loving to me, and I can't imagine why they would lie to me about any of this. There's nothing in it for them. Every time that I've done all of the things that they've said, you're going to do this, you're going to fly out into the sky, you're going to change 5D. They even changed the Earth to 5D. They even came to me one day and said, how would you feel if you were able to single-handedly pull humanity into the fifth dimension? I said, how would I feel? I would love that. That sounds like a great idea. She says, good, because you are. And anyway, it's not an easy thing to believe or digest. And but at the same time, if everything I've been told is true, then it's my responsibility to accept it. And what's the worst thing? If I'm wrong, what's the worst thing that can happen? I will have meditated and gained some compassion for myself and for others. It's the worst thing that can happen. Best thing is if I accept it, and like my friend said, it's very important that you believe what we're telling you. If I follow through, then maybe I can balance the damage that I've caused. And if I could, the truth of the matter is, if I could snap my fingers and awaken everybody on Earth, I'd do it. So here I'm given an opportunity. I can go do it every time that we do these meditations. That's what's happening. And I can only assume, that there's a core 30 people that show up for the live streams, and that however many others watch after they've been recorded. I can only assume that you are starseeds who's come into being, and I don't even know, I'm sure I don't know most of you. You've come into being because you have come here to save the world. Maybe you were part of the Atlantean Empire and ruled with me, for all I know. I don't know. So I'm going to leave it there. There's a whole other. That's just part one. I have another part 2 here. I'm going to save that for another video. Thank you, my friends. I love you all. And I'm so grateful to all of you, all of the support you give the channel on, whether it's financial or, meditational, or whether you come in and do the meditations or whatever it is that you do to support the channel and this work. I'm very grateful, and I thank you for that. So, until next time, my friends, please take very good care of yourselves, And I will see you all very soon.